They called her the Queen of Rock and Roll, a woman whose voice could shake the earth and whose strength made the world bow. But behind the crowns, the awards, and the roaring crowds, Tina Turner carried a truth far darker than the spotlight ever revealed. She survived betrayal, brutality, and an industry that tried to control her every breath. And when she finally broke free, Tina said something unforgettable. Music doesn't just create legends, it awakens demons. Before she passed, she opened up about a list she kept close to her heart, not of villains, but of artists whose stories she believed revealed the darker side of fame. Musicians consumed by their own pain, trapped by the industry, or transformed by pressures no one could see. Who were these 10 names? Icons? Warnings? Reflections of the demons she fought her whole life? And what compelled Tina Turner, one of the greatest legends ever, to speak her truth before her final breath? The answers may change the way you see music forever. Number 1. Ike Turner. The man who turned love into a prison. The first name on Tina Turner's hidden list wasn't a stranger, nor an enemy from the outside world. He was the man who discovered her, shaped her, loved her in a way that felt like ownership, and nearly destroyed her spirit. His name was Ike Turner, praised by history as a founding father of rock and roll, but remembered by Tina as the first darkness she ever met in the music industry. Their story began like a fairy tale twisted at the roots. In 1957, a shy 17-year-old girl named Anna Mae Bullock walked into Club Manhattan in St. Louis, where Ike Turner and his band, the Kings of Rhythm, were performing. The room was loud, smoky, restless, until she took the microphone. Her voice erupted with wild, soulful energy, carrying a pain and power that silenced the crowd. Ike stopped playing and stared at her as if he had just witnessed a force of nature. From that night on, her life drifted into his orbit. Ike renamed her Tina Turner, claiming it was for publicity. But he trademarked the name so he could replace her if she ever tried to leave. It wasn't rebranding, it was possession disguised as opportunity. And soon, Ike and Tina Turner became an unstoppable duo in rhythm and blues, shaking stages around the world with their fiery chemistry and unforgettable hits like A Fool in Love, Proud Mary, and It's Going to Work Out Fine. But behind the applause was a reality only the band could see, a partnership built on fear. Ike could not handle Tina's rising fame. His insecurity grew into jealousy. Band members said he monitored her every move, controlled who she spoke to, even dictated her facial expressions on stage. His glare, they said, could freeze a room into silence. When anger struck, he broke instruments, canceled shows, or used the studio as a place to lash out. As their success grew, Ike's addictions deepened. Cocaine became the fuel for his paranoia. He believed record labels, journalists, and even Tina were conspiring against him. Rumors spread that he forced her to sign binding contracts, making escape nearly impossible. On stage, she was a star. Off stage, she was a captive. The breaking point arrived in 1966 when producer Phil Spector invited Tina to record River Deep, Mountain High, on one condition. Ike was not allowed in the studio. Tina delivered a 22-hour performance, pushing her voice beyond exhaustion. The result was a masterpiece that earned acclaim across Europe. To Ike, it was humiliation. The idea of Tina succeeding without him burned like acid, and the violence escalated. By the mid-1970s, Ike ruled the band with a cult-like grip. No one dared challenge him. Tina was emotionally shattered, physically drained, performing only to keep the peace. The love story that once seemed magical had become a cage she could no longer breathe inside. Everything changed in 1976 during a tour in Dallas. A violent argument erupted, one that made Tina understand, with terrifying clarity, that if she didn't leave now, she would never survive. When Ike eventually fell asleep, Tina fled barefoot, carrying nothing but a gas card. She ran through the night, bruised and terrified, until she reached a motel and begged for safety. With sunrise came her freedom. The world didn't know it yet, but Ike and Tina Turner were finished forever. Ike's downfall was immediate. He lost contracts, his band, and the respect he once commanded. Attempts to revive his career failed. In 1986, when Tina published her memoir, I, Tina, the truth became public. In 2007, he died at age 76 from complications related to addiction. To the world, Ike Turner was a musical pioneer. To Tina Turner, he was the man who transformed love into imprisonment, music into fear, and taught her a brutal truth. The deepest wounds, Don Destet, come from enemies. They come from the person you trust the most. Number 2, Phil Spector. The genius with a gun. The second name on Tina Turner's hidden list wasn't a lover, nor a man who bruised her body. He was something darker, a reminder that genius and madness can grow inside the same human shell, feeding each other until one finally destroys the other. His name was Phil Spector, the revolutionary producer of the 1960s who built empires of sound and ruined lives in the shadows behind them. From his youth, Spector was hailed as a prodigy. Critics called him a sound wizard, a man who didn't just record music, he engineered sonic earthquakes. His famous wall of sound wasn't a style, it was an assault, a towering mass of instruments layered until the speakers shook. But for Spector, genius wasn't enough. He needed obedience. He needed control. Every note, every breath, every heartbeat in the studio had to match the vision in his mind. When he first heard Tina Turner's voice on the radio in 1966, he said it was the volcano he had been searching for his entire life. He approached Ike Turner with a bizarre offer, $20,000 in exchange for banning Ike from the studio. He wanted Tina's voice, not Ike's interference, not his presence, not even his shadow. Then came the notorious recording of River Deep, Mountain High. What happened inside Gold Star Studios that night became legend. Spector packed more than 20 musicians into the room, suspending dozens of microphones in a chaotic maze of wires. The doors were locked, clocks removed, lights dimmed except for the harsh spotlight aimed directly at Tina. Once the session began, time ceased to exist. She sang, then sang again, then again, her voice pushed past exhaustion. Between takes, Spector moved like a restless ghost, pacing around the mixing console, cigarette smoke swirling around him. On the table beside him lay a gun, its metallic shine impossible to ignore. He never aimed it at anyone. He didn't need to. Just touching it was enough to keep fear alive in the room. Musicians sat frozen. No one dared complain. No one dared glance at the clock, even though none remained on the walls. Spector demanded perfection, and perfection demanded suffering. After 22 hours, Tina Sepp's voice was nearly gone. Her body trembled. Her throat burned, but Spector finally leaned back, trembling with his own strange satisfaction. He smiled and whispered, "That's Sepp's it. That's Sepp's the sound." For him, it was triumph. For Tina, it was captivity disguised as art. The song became a European success but collapsed in the US, a blow that shattered Spector's ego. Wounded and humiliated, he withdrew into his Los Angeles mansion, a labyrinth of mirrors, locked rooms, and paranoia. Visitors later described him wandering through the hallways with a gun in his hand, talking to walls as if they were alive. His obsession with control deepened. He reportedly locked singers in studios, forced them to work in darkness and pushed them to tears, convinced that fear created better music. Then, in 2003, the nightmare reached its final crescendo. Actress Lana Clarkson was found dead inside his mansion. The police described the home as a museum of paranoia, mirrored corridors, old photographs stacked in piles, cassette tapes rising like towers, bullet casings scattered like forgotten souvenirs. Phil Spector was arrested. In 2009, he was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to prison, where he remained until his death in 2021. To the world, he was a troubled genius. To Tina Turner, he was simply a more refined version of Ike Turner. No fists, no shouting, just domination through fear and psychological power. Phil Spector's story is not merely the fall of a legend. It is a reminder that the world's most captivating sounds can come from rooms filled with terror, and that sometimes behind brilliance there sits a gun. Number 3, James Brown. The king on stage, the devil backstage. We now reach a legend, a man the whole world once bowed to. James Brown, the godfather of soul. A titan of music, a visionary, a performer whose voice and feet rewrote the rhythm of America. But Tina Turner once said, "No one truly knew James except those who stood behind the curtains." Because when the lights went out, the saint of the stage transformed into the devil backstage. In 1968, Tina and her band joined him on one of the biggest tours of that era. On stage, James Brown was unstoppable, a blazing red suit, sweat flying, feet sliding across the floor like sparks. The crowd screamed, cried, and worshipped him. His performances felt almost supernatural. But backstage, everything shifted. The energy he radiated turned into something cold, sharp, and frightening. He demanded absolute silence when he entered a room. He required everyone to stand as he passed. No one spoke unless he allowed it. And laughter? That was forbidden. One night in Atlanta, as Tina prepared for her set, Brown noticed one of her dancers laughing during his rehearsal. He stopped instantly. The room stiffened. Without a word, he hurled a microphone at the girl with terrifying force. Tina rushed to help but froze when she met his eyes. Those weren't the eyes of a musician. They were the eyes of a man convinced he controlled life, death, and everything in between. After that incident, Tina understood something the audience never saw. James Brown wasn't simply intense. He was consumed by power. He needed control like oxygen. He punished mistakes ruthlessly. His band lived in fear of being fined for a single missed beat or a flawed note. A James Brown concert wasn't just a show. It was a demonstration of domination disguised as entertainment. By the mid-1970s, his life spiraled. Addiction warped his mind. Cocaine fed his delusions. He once forced his driver to stop in the middle of a highway because the music playing in the car wasn't set the song he wanted. Another night, he kept his band playing until dawn, claiming the sound hasn't set reached God yet. Slowly, the title Godfather of Soul became a symbol of tragedy, a reminder of a genius losing himself inside the illusion of divinity. Then came 1988, the year the myth cracked open. Brown led police on a high-speed chase through Georgia, gun in hand, drugs in the car. The image of him in an orange jumpsuit flashed across every news channel. The world was stunned. One of the greatest performers in history had become a criminal headline. When he was released, James Brown insisted he had been reborn. But the shadows clinging to him never disappeared. Tina understood his downfall more clearly than most. They both carried wild, explosive stage energy, but while Tina used hers to survive, Brown used his to dominate. He believed he was music itself, a god whose will shaped the world around him. Tina had lived under a man with that same belief. She knew that kind of power did not elevate a person, it destroyed them. In his final years, James Brown lived alone in his South Carolina mansion, surrounded by lawsuits, financial chaos, broken relationships, and whispered rumors that he'd been poisoned. He died on Christmas night, 2006, alone, fading away in a silence completely unlike the world he once commanded. No one knows whether he found peace in those final hours. Only that the voice that once set the world on fire dimmed into darkness. Tina Turner called it the price of a man who thought he was God. And in her eyes, James Brown wasn't evil because of his cruelty, but because he worshipped the spotlight, believing it was heaven's light, never realizing it was the fire consuming his soul. Number 4, Berry Gordy. He didn't need fists screaming or violence to destroy anyone. All he needed was a smile, a contract, and a pen. Berry Gordy, founder of Motown Records, was praised as the visionary who turned black music into a global empire. But to many artists who entered his world, he was something far more chilling, a quiet manipulator who trapped souls not with chains, but with paperwork. The story began in Detroit, 1959. Inside a small house at 2648 West Grand Boulevard, Gordy created what he proudly called the Hit Factory. It was more than a studio, it was a machine, sharp, polished, perfectly engineered, and every singer who walked through its doors became one of its parts. Gordy didn't just sign artists, he redesigned them. He taught them how to speak, how to smile, how to walk, how to impress the media. They weren't treated as musicians. They were products, and in Gordy's system, a product only had value if it made money. Dozens of artists signed contracts without understanding what they were giving away. The documents were simple but devastating. Every song, every lyric, every performance, every royalty belonged to the company forever. Not for 10 years, not for 20, forever. And anyone who resisted the system disappeared. Florence Ballard, the true founder of the Supremes, was the first painful example. When she questioned missing payments, Gordy removed her from the group in less than a week. Her voice built the foundation of Motown's biggest female act, but she died in poverty at just 32. Meanwhile, Diana Ross, Gordy's golden protégé and rumored lover, rose higher than ever. In Detroit, everyone knew it. Motown wasn't just a record label, it was Berry Gordy Sit's kingdom. And Diana Ross was its queen. When Ross launched her solo career with a multi-million-dollar contract, Gordy's favoritism became impossible to hide. Years later, when she gave birth to her first son, rumors exploded that Gordy was the father. They both stayed silent, letting the mystery fuel the legend. But Ross wasn't the only one whose fate was entangled with Gordy. Marvin Gaye, Motown's soul, its conscience, its wounded poet, fought battles of his own. When he presented What's Going On, Gordy rejected it instantly. Too political, too dark, too risky for Motown's commercial image. Gaye refused to back down. The album became one of the greatest in American music history, but his rebellion shattered their relationship. He left the label bitter, sued for freedom, and fell into crushing debt, a punishment many believed was Motown's silent retaliation. By the 1970s, Motown moved to Los Angeles, and Gordy's influence reached its peak. He expanded into film, television, and mingled with Hollywood elites. While his world grew brighter, the original Motown stars faded into shadows. Mary Wells, the voice behind My Guy, lost her royalties and disappeared from the spotlight. David Ruffin of The Temptations was fired for demanding fair pay. Dozens of voices that shaped a generation were left behind, replaced by new faces Gordy could shape more easily. Around this time, Tina Turner, newly freed from Ike and rebuilding her life, met Gordy. He offered her a management deal, promising to make her the next queen of Motown. But Tina wasn't someone anyone could control. When she refused to bend, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Before she left, Gordy told her, "No one survives alone in this business." Tina later said she didn't hear advice. She heard a warning. To her, Berry Gordy represented a different kind of danger, not violent like Ike, not explosive, but cold and calculated. He destroyed people with ink, not fists. He controlled futures with silence, not screams. Today, Motown is celebrated worldwide as a cultural treasure. Its songs defined generations, its stars changed America. But behind the bright lights lie darker truths, broken contracts, stolen royalties, quiet deaths, and artists who vanished without a trace. Berry Gordy is honored as the man who opened doors for black music. But to many who lived through his reign, he was the king of a golden empire built on obedience, fear, and souls trapped in music they would never fully own again. Number 5. Rick James. He wasn't set just a star. He was a dangerous flame, brilliant, scorching, and destined to burn out. Rick James, once crowned the king of funk, embodied raw, unfiltered excess. But to Tina Turner, he wasn't the glamorous icon the world adored. He was a warning, a living example of what happens when genius is consumed by its own desire. Their first meeting happened in 1981 at a Grammy after-party in Los Angeles. Rick walked in wearing a blazing red leather jacket, dripping in gold chains, radiating an energy so intense the entire room shifted. People didn't move for him out of respect. They moved because something about him felt unpredictable. Tina Turner later said, "His eyes were darker than the room." And she meant it. At the time, Rick James was untouchable. His monster hit Super Freak had exploded across the globe. MTV played him like a religion. Magazines worshipped him as the last wild flame of funk. But behind the cameras lived a different reality, one drenched in cocaine, alcohol, and non-stop chaos. Journalists who visited his Hollywood Hills mansion described it as a fever dream, curtains sealed shut, neon lights buzzing all night, strangers drifting through hallways like ghosts, and no one ever sober enough to know if it was night or day. By the mid-1980s, his kingdom began cracking. Collaborators abandoned him. His label severed ties. Instead of slowing down, Rick dove deeper into the void. His arrests mounted, violent outbursts, hotel fights, assaults, destroyed property. Newspapers soon gave him a new title, the most lost soul in American music. Then came 1991, the scandal that shattered everything. Rick James and his girlfriend Tanya Hijazi were arrested in Los Angeles after being accused of kidnapping and assaulting 2 women. The story detonated across the nation. Victims described Rick as high for days, disconnected from reality, drifting between delusion and rage. His mugshot, braids hanging over a hollow, exhausted face, became the new image of the fallen legend. He was convicted and served over 2 years in prison. When Rick was released, he tried to reclaim his throne, but the world had already moved on. Concert halls were nearly empty. Radio stations ignored him. His body was deteriorating after decades of self-destruction. On August 6, 2004, Rick James was found dead in his sleep at 56. The autopsy ruled heart failure, with traces of drugs still present. A brilliant soul burned alive by its own fire. Tina Turner never judged him. She said Rick was a child of his era, a man whose enormous talent had spiraled beyond control, swallowed by addiction, desire, and darkness. To her, Rick James represented a tragic truth. Genius can ignite the world or consume the one who carries it. Number 6. Quincy Jones. He wasn't set loud. He wasn't set violent, but in the shadows of the music world, his influence was absolute. Quincy Jones, the master behind Thriller, the architect of global ceremonies, the man with more Grammys than some countries have gold, was praised as a genius. But to Tina Turner, he was something far more dangerous, a puppeteer who controlled destinies without ever lifting a finger. In the early 1980s, freshly freed from Ike's tyranny and rebuilding her career from ashes, Tina received an invitation. Quincy Jones wanted to guide her comeback, and when Quincy wanted a meeting, you didn't say no. His approval could launch a career into orbit. His silence could bury one. Tina met him in a private Beverly Hills room lined with gold records and photos of stars who ruled the world. Michael Jackson, Donna Summer, Lionel Richie. Quincy slid a document toward her, a full international career blueprint, immaculate, brilliant, and conditional. He demanded total creative control. Her music, her image, her direction, all of it under his authority. It was a perfect deal for anyone who wanted guaranteed stardom, But Tina Turner had survived too much to sell her identity again. She refused. And that sets when the shadows moved. Within weeks, concerts mysteriously collapsed. Television bookings evaporated. Record labels that had chased her suddenly fell silent. No explanations, no confrontations, just doors shutting one after another. No one dared mention Quincy. No one needed to. In Hollywood, everyone already knew crossing him meant vanishing. And it wasn't paranoia. Even global icons, from Michael Jackson to Lionel Richie, had hinted that Quincy's reach extended far beyond music. He had influence over labels, networks, sponsors, media, even political spheres. He didn't push people out. The system pushed for him. Tina chose independence anyway. She resurrected her career on her own terms. But she never forgot the encounter. To her, Quincy Jones embodied a chilling truth. Real power doesn't scream. It whispers. It smiles. It convinces you that you're safe while the walls quietly rearrange around you. To the world, he remains a legend. But in Tina Turner's memory, he was the manipulator in the shadows, proof that evil doesn't require cruelty, only intelligence. And the cold confidence to make others believe they're moving freely while dancing in the palm of his hand. Number 7, Diana Ross. She wasn't the one who hit Tina Turner. She wasn't the one who broke her bones, screamed at her, or dragged her through hell. But on Tina's secret list, the person who wounded her the deepest was a woman. The woman America worshipped as elegance, beauty, and perfection. The woman Motown crowned as its eternal queen, Diana Ross. To the world, Ross was a flawless star wrapped in glamour. To Tina Turner, she represented a different kind of cruelty, one polished by fame, sharpened by ambition, and delivered with a smile so perfect it could cut. Both women rose from nothing. Both faced poverty and prejudice. But while Tina clawed her way up through brutal work and survival, Diana Ross ascended through precision, strategy, and connections that shaped the industry like puppet strings. Their worlds collided in Hollywood, where Motown ruled like an empire and Berry Gordy, Ross's mentor, protector, and rumored lover, controlled the system from behind velvet curtains. Their first real clash happened in the late 1960s at a grand Motown gala. Tina, then burning brightly with Ike Turner beside her, opened the show with thunderous energy. When she left the stage, Diana Ross entered in a dazzling silver gown, followed by assistants like royal attendants. Before the host could finish, Ross snatched the microphone and congratulated Tina with two cold, calculated words. "Dear colleague." The crowd applauded, but those closest to the stage noticed Ross's eyes, hollow, icy, assessing. Then she signaled the band, changed the music without permission, and began singing over Tina's closing applause. It wasn't an accident. It was a warning, a public declaration. There is room for only one queen. From that moment, doors closed. Gordy quietly banned Tina from events featuring Ross. TV producers were told the two women were too similar in image, a polite lie to keep Ross alone at the top. While Tina fought for her life under Ike's control, Ross graced magazine covers, starred in films, and built a pristine solo empire fully powered by the Motown machine Tina no longer had access to. When Tina finally escaped Ike in the mid-1970s and crashed into financial chaos, Ross soared higher than ever. And during a 1977 live broadcast in New York, when the host mentioned Tina Sep's struggling comeback, Ross smiled into the camera and said, "Everyone has their time." The studio laughed. Tina didn't sat. It wasn't the insult, it was the truth behind it. Ross didn't need to attack anyone. She simply had to shine brighter and let others disappear in the shadows she cast. But fate is strange. In 1984, Tina returned like a storm with Private Dancer, reclaiming a throne many thought she'd lost forever. The media began comparing the two queens, Tina's fire versus Diana's ice. Ross said nothing publicly. But at major events, she always left the venue before Tina's performance. Quiet, deliberate, cold. The unspoken war reached its peak in 1991. Tina Turner was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Every major artist sent flowers or letters. Her team claimed she was busy in Las Vegas, but no one believed it. She never named her, but those close to her said her expression changed every time Ross's name came up. Not angry, not bitter, just profoundly sad. To Tina, Diana Ross wasn't set an enemy. She was the embodiment of a deeper betrayal, the kind hidden beneath praise, gowns, and perfect smiles. If Ike Turner made Tina fear men, Diana Ross made her lose faith in women. Because sometimes evil doesn't raise a fist, sometimes it stands center stage, wearing diamonds, waving to the crowd, and answering to one name only, Queen. Number 8, Prince. He wasn't set a star. He wasn't set a rebel. He was the man who turned himself into God and paid the ultimate price for believing it. If David Bowie flirted with darkness, Prince lived inside it. To Tina Turner, he wasn't set simply a fellow legend. He was the last warning. When an artist worships only himself, the art eventually demands everything back. Tina met him during a European tour in the early 1980s. He appeared backstage like a violet apparition, light glowing from behind him, moving with an eerie grace as if guided by an unseen force. And when the concert ended, he vanished into thin air. No goodbye, no footsteps, just silence. His sanctuary, Paisley Park, wasn't a home. It was a universe built by one man's will, locked doors, darkened windows, secret schedules. No one entered unless chosen. No one stayed unless he allowed it. There, Prince controlled everything, writing, recording, producing, every note, every beat, every breath. Miss one cue, and you were gone. A former assistant once said he didn't need people. He needed nothing but himself and the echo of his own genius. He discovered young women and shaped them into icons. Vanity, Apollonia, Sheila E., Carmen Electra. Each story started like a dream and ended as a lesson in possession. Vanity, his first muse, didn't just receive a stage name. Prince designed her band, her image, even her smile. But when she wanted independence, he cut all ties, reclaimed her songs, erased her from his world. She spiraled into addiction and died in 2016, the same year fate came for him. Apollonia, the face of Purple Rain, said he controlled every breath she took, forbidding relationships, interviews, autonomy. When the film premiered, he abandoned her the same night. Sheila E., the powerhouse drummer, confessed, "Prince wanted to own me like a song." He dictated her lyrics, her sound, her outfits, and when she signed a solo deal, he didn't protest. He simply disappeared. But gods eventually bleed. Years of dancing in towering heels shattered his hips. To endure the agony, he relied on painkillers, then depended on them. His doctor admitted Prince used false names to fill prescriptions. The more pain, the more pills. The more pills, the more performances. The more performances, the deeper the abyss. On April 21, 2016, he was found in the elevator at Paisley Park, alone, silent, gone. The autopsy revealed fentanyl 50 times stronger than morphine. A god brought down not by enemies, but by the weight of his own perfection. Tina Turner never forgot that moment. To her, Prince was the warning carved into music history. Obsession doesn't just consume others. It eventually consumes the one who believes he cannot fall. Number 9, David Bowie. He didn't control people with threats or fists. He controlled them with something far stranger, a supernatural charm that felt almost otherworldly. When he collaborated with Tina Turner on Tonight in 1985, she had just escaped the brutality of Ike Turner and believed she was finally stepping into a safe space. She thought she was working with a friend, a genius, someone who understood darkness but didn't live in it. But the closer she stood to him, the colder she felt. His mismatched eyes, one blue, one gray, didn't sparkle with creativity. They looked empty, ancient, as if holding a secret he couldn't reveal without tearing the world open. He spoke little, he stared long, and every movement felt like it came from a dream he was still trapped in. By then, the industry was flooded with rumors. He believed demons followed him. He scattered salt around his pool to ward off spirits. He performed midnight rituals with candles and reversed sound recordings that engineers swore changed the air in the room. One studio worker claimed he once saw him in a trance, drawing Kabbalistic symbols on the wall, chanting melodies that didn't sound human. Tina attended a party in London where he performed what he called a sound ritual. The lights died. The room froze. A deep bass vibrated through the darkness as smoke curled around him. He moved slowly, eyes closed, like a vessel for something not entirely his own. When the music stopped, he opened his eyes and simply smiled. No applause, no breath. Tina said it felt like watching a soul step out of its body. To her, he wasn't evil. He was the danger of an artist who believed art must trespass into forbidden territory. When he died in 2016, the world called him a genius. Tina said only one thing. He saw too much, and he never came back. Number 10, Michael Jackson. To Tina Turner, evil didn't always arrive with claws or shadows. Sometimes it came disguised as a fallen angel, a boy whose voice once made the world weep. Michael Jackson, the miracle child, the global icon, the king of pop. But to Tina, he was the most haunting reminder of what the music industry could do to a pure soul. She saw him backstage in 1988, thin, trembling, eyes dimmed, as if something inside him had already begun to die. A few years later, the world watched in disbelief as police stormed Neverland. The fairy tale kingdom of toys, animals, and wonder transformed overnight into a crime scene. Tina Turner whispered, "That boy once sang to heal the world, and the world turned him into its monster." To her, Michael wasn't the villain. He was the warning. The final proof that in the music industry, talent can be drained, innocence shattered, and fame turned into a lifelong sentence. An angel the world adored, until it burned his wings. So, what do you think? Were Michael Jackson and the other legends victims of fame's dark side, or proof that greatness always comes with a price? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your take. Before you go, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. More hidden truths, lost stories, and untold secrets are coming in the next video. Stay tuned.